Well, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to strike last word. We've talked about a lot of things today, and one of the things we talked about was restoring the Research and Development Act, which is going to be part of this bill. Retroactively wouldn't be as beneficial. Well, a couple things I want to say about that. One is that a lot of companies have not filed. They've extended their tax returns till October. So if we pass this legislation, get it effective, they will still be able to manage their cash flow and make that work going forward. The other part, in terms of talking about this, is that this committee actually has a history of doing retroactive provisions, including over the last several years with the Democrats in the majority and Chairman Neal leading the committee. Things like the new energy efficient home credit, the alternative fuel vehicle refueling property credit, increasing the energy ITC, and also retroactively voting to increase the SALT deduction and the CTC retroactive in September of 2021. So I know we've talked a lot in the field hearings about the impact and how important R&D is for the industry and businesses big and small, and it's so important that we need to keep that moving forward. I'd also like to talk a little bit more about the committee's jurisdiction and history. The U.S. Constitution states that all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. That's us. I mean, we're here because the Constitution that we all swore to uphold assigns us that responsibility. Ways and Means Committee actually has a reference in the Constitution because our founders understood that the importance of taxation. So it's concerning to me that the Biden administration would use negotiators and bureaucrats to cede that responsibility to foreign countries. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit for the record my letter to the editor of tax notes that goes into greater detail about the failings of some of these tax schemes, entitled OECD Pillar 2 is a bad deal for America.
Without objection, so ordered.
As representatives of our districts, we should be seeking policies that put America first and defend our job creators and innovators. Yet the provisions of the OECD Pillar 2 punish American workers and corporations through their global minimum tax scheme. The data is clear. According to JCT, global implementation of the global minimum tax as defined by Pillar 2 will cost the United States $120 billion in lost tax revenue. And if the United States is forced to change its tax code to comply with the Pillar 2 provisions, we'll still lose $58 billion in revenue. And who benefits? The foreign countries looking to pad their coffers with U.S. tax dollars. Implementing Pillar 2 will result in higher costs, fewer jobs, and less economic opportunity for millions of American families. Under the Treasury OECD plan, there'll be a drastic impact on U.S. companies operating overseas, with some U.S. companies being double or even triple taxed. This will cause lower tax revenue for the United States Treasury, job losses for our workers, and decreased investment in the United States. Compare this with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. My Democrat colleagues like to pretend this was a failure, but facts don't lie. It created real economic growth for countless Americans, especially middle-class workers. And we prevented companies from headquartering overseas. Our corporate tax revenue has increased, millions of jobs were created, and there's not been a single major inversion since Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed. Republicans have a proven track record of helping American workers, innovators, and job creators, but President Biden and Secretary Yellen continue to work with the OECD against American interests to impose a global minimum tax, which has resulted in an egregious undertaxed profit rule, or UTPR. Chairman Smith has already introduced legislation to combat these extraterritorial and discriminatory taxes. It's a good start, but I'm ready to see this go further. If any country is thinking about imposing a discriminatory tax on the United States, we will be ready to tax them back. The Kansans I represent need tax relief and economic growth and stability, not for their hard-earned dollars to be shipped off to foreign countries through detrimental tax schemes from the OECD. It is my hope that my colleagues across the aisle will see the light and help us oppose this bad deal. I yield back.